All right, everyone. I think let's go ahead and get started. Just if somebody could just let me know if my sound is okay, and you guys can hear me. I see some thumbs up. Thank you very much. So I'm really happy to be here, and I just want to say good evening to everyone, and also good morning to our colleagues from CADRRE and any other guests from India who may be joining us today. I'm sorry, I don't see my own face here. So I just really thank you for being here, as I know that for those of us in Los Angeles, it is the end of a pretty long Thursday. And for those in India, you're waking up very early on a Friday morning. So welcome everyone to our global brown bag presentation, which is entitled "Are Online Interventions Effective for My Child with ASD?" We are so lucky to be joined by an interdisciplinary panel of experts joining us from the Center for Autism and Other Disabilities Rehabilitation Research and Education, or CADRRE, in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, India. As we get started, I actually do invite anyone who is able to turn on your videos so we can see each other. Although, of course, we understand if you're not in a place where you can do so. So for time's sake, I will just very briefly welcome and very warmly welcome on behalf of our USC Chan community, Dr. Nandita Nair, psychologist, Rachna Dinakran, occupational therapist, Anuja Sudhir, speech language pathologist, and Vrinda Vijay, psychologist. Their full bios are found in the announcement that we sent out via email. And as soon as I am finished with my introductions, I will also put their bios in the chat for you to download shortly. I also really want to acknowledge and to thank Lakshmi Nair, Principal Advisory Member of CADRRE, who really was the one that made, in a lot of ways, this event possible. So I just really want to make sure to recognize Lakshmi as well. Very briefly, CADRRE is a not-for-profit organization established in Kerala in December 2016 with the aim of transforming the lives of people with autism through best practice principles and family-centered holistic care across the lifespan. They are an amazing center, and we at USC are very grateful to know them. We all know how massively our lives were impacted and changed by the global COVID-19 pandemic. And we really look forward to hearing this presentation in the ways that this center, that you all were able to adapt in some very challenging circumstances. I understand that there will be plenty of time for questions, and so do feel free to put them in the chat, or at the conclusion of this presentation, there will be a kind of a moderated time where you can unmute yourself and ask questions verbally as well. So with that, I will stop talking. What I'll do is I'll pass this over to our colleagues from India, and Nandita, I believe you will go ahead and share your screen. But let's welcome our let's welcome our friends from CADRRE. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. We're really excited to be here, and we hope that we can, help you understand what we did and how we went about doing it. So before we start, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about CADRRE. So CADRRE is a not-for-profit organization. We started in 2017, and we are based in Kerala. So we have two centers. So the one you see here is for our little children up to the age of 10, and this one here is for the older children. So 10 to 18 come to this center. Both the centers have teams of multidisciplinary professionals. So we've got occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, psychologists, educators, art and music teachers. So till date, we've served about 80 children with autism in the age group of 2.5 to 18 years. And they come in from 9 to 3 every day. And it's a school setting for them. And we also have a complimentary service for people who would want to be assessed, for their children to be assessed to see if the child has autism or not. So for that service, we've managed about 400 children. So we've done assessments for about 400 children. And as of fairly recently, we've launched 3 new programs. So we have an after-school program for school-going children. So these children are already in a mainstream or inclusive school, but need services over and above what they get at school. So they come to us for that. We have a parent-mediated intervention. So this is for parents who cannot afford to come in for intervention every day or regularly. So they come in once a month. We write up an IEP for them. We train them, all of us train them. They then go away, do what the activities that we've asked them to do, and then they come back with their challenges, their learnings, their doubts, questions, and that is an ongoing service that we have. And the third one is an employability training program for young adults with autism. So except for the school-going program, the other two are complementary services that are provided by CADRRE. So essentially what happens in a day, our children come in from 9 to 3, they spend the day with us. We draw up an IEP at the beginning of the year for the child, and all of us work on those individual goals. And the parents meet with us once a week, and we would update them on what the child has done through the week, what the challenges were. We get feedback from them as to what's happening at home, because as all of you would know, collaboration is the only way we can really make a difference. So those weekly meetings are extremely important for us. I'll show you a little video as to how our day looks pre-pandemic. So this is when the kids used to come in and they would spend their day with us. And here you'll see that our day starts off with an assembly. They then go through yoga. They then have a sensory circuit. And after that, the children get academic sessions of 30 to 35 minutes each, where they go through reading, writing, and general sciences. In this time, they also get push-in therapy from the SLPs, psychologists, and occupational therapists. Then for leisure, they can go to the playground. We have an aviary. They can walk on the sensory pathways. There are lawns to play. So they have a lot of downtime where they can, really enjoy themselves. And then we also have art and music, because that seems to be two of the very popular things that the children love doing. So that happens as well. So before the pandemic, the children were with us. And after they went home, they kind of had time with their families. They would have a bit of downtime. Now, in March 2020, what happened was the lockdown was announced. And this, initially we thought that it was going to be for a few weeks, but then we realized that this is going to be for a fairly long time. But this sudden halt in services brought about a huge challenge for us, for the children, for the families. Once there was no predictable structure, once the children couldn't get out, the environment had changed, they couldn't comprehend why they had to remain indoors. Some of them didn't want to wear masks. There were sensory issues around using sanitizers. So the feedback from parents was that the behavioral challenges that they were experiencing had just skyrocketed. And while the children were in school, the disruptive behaviors, the challenging behaviors were fairly under control. But this lockdown just kind of exacerbated everything. So we had children who wanted to, try and get out of the house and leave, but because they were so minimally verbal, parents were finding it very difficult to understand what was actually going on. Self-harm, aggression towards the parents had just gone through the roof. And all in all, we felt that the families were facing a lot of anxiety. The parents didn't know what to do, how to manage. The children were at a loss of, how to, they wanted to go out, they wanted to play, they wanted to come to school. So it was quite a challenging time. And as parents moved into, work from home situations, we found that they were oscillating between one of two things. So either they were very permissive and giving the children a lot of screen time so that they could work, or they were going towards the other end and being very punitive with the children. So where we had worked very hard with, using reinforcements and positive behavior management techniques, all that went out of the window. And as we read and, as the literature around this started coming out, we realized that the children are showing symptoms that are actually mimicking PTSD. That's when we realized that we really need to do something. And in this, in the uncertainty of how long this would be, we decided that we would move into an online system. Now, this wasn't without challenges, because as you would imagine, technology, accessibility, knowledge of how to use these things, not having access to the kind of material we have in a center were huge challenges for us to, consider. It was not just for us, even for the parents who were working from home. How are we going to like manage the timings? There were a lot of challenges. But what we did was we then evolved, had a process of evolution in the way we disseminated our our services, and we went through 3 phases. So I'll pass it on to Anuja, who will take you through those, and we'll take you through this in a little bit of detail so you can understand what it is that we did. We're doing this with the hope that in case you need to do it, you kind of have a roadmap to follow, which is why there will be a little bit of detail. So I'll pass it over to Anuja to take it forward.
Thank you, Nandita. And so as Nandita was talking about, during this pandemic and the sudden lockdown, it was actually uncertain what has to be done next and how we can keep the intervention going. So before we go into the methods that we tried, we can quickly have a look at the demographics about the children who we closely followed during these phases. So we followed the intervention of 14 children from the preschool and elementary school ages, school groups, and 13 of them were boys and we had 1 girl. And the age range was from 3.5 years to 9 years. And we had 6 of them in the preschool group and 8 in the elementary group. So the methods that we tried were, we tried it in 3 phases. The phase 1 was a group session for parents via web-based interaction, and phase 2 pre-recorded video lessons or video classes, and phase 3 was an individual online sessions. Let's look into detail into each phases. So during phase 1, it was a group, it was done suddenly. We took a week or so off and we thought what can be done, and we immediately started a group session for parents via web-based interaction. There we had groups of children who are at a similar level of functioning, and we gave them trained parents as to what has to be done at home, what all are the challenges they will be facing, and how to deal with all that. So we gave them a detailed understanding about the IEPs of their children. So we were like preparing the parents to reduce their stress. That's what we intended at that time, reduce their stress and prepare them to face this situation. So, but as time went, we could find that this was not working as we intended, because most of the parents who were working from home had difficulty attending the sessions at the time that we scheduled it wouldn't match their timing. And also parents had difficulty to, there were uncertainties not only in the intervention but also in all walks of life. So they couldn't suddenly go into a structured routine for their children. They couldn't spend a lot of time with their children. So all this was causing a lot of stress in the parents, and they were they needed more support. And and so we thought of going to pre-recorded video lessons. So that was the next thing that we thought of. And so we assessed the children and we made a detailed IEP for each child, and based on the IEP we started setting videos, uploading videos in their classroom, 2 videos each from each discipline. And the parents could view the videos at their own pace, and they could learn from the videos, and they could work with their child. So the rationale of the goal, why, what are the activities that should be worked in a particular goal, and how it can be worked out, the resources, how to make resources from the things that are around them that are cheaply available in their house and surroundings. So all this was explained in the video. And for almost 6 months, we continued this. And towards over a period of time, we could also find that this was also not helping the parents as we intended. It was really helping, but then not as we intended, because they needed to watch the video, learn themselves. So they needed to find a lot of time to watch the video, learn themselves, then go and work with their children. If they have any doubt, they have to come back to the video. So the parents were lagging behind. They were not coming up to the level, up to the activities or the goals that we were sending to them. So they were lagging behind, and they needed more. We felt that they needed more hands-on training as to how they should work with the children. And from children's perspective, their sensory issues and behavior challenges were like shooting up. So then we thought of, like, around September 2020, we came up with the idea of individual online sessions. So we started providing online sessions individually to each child based on their IEP. And they got 2 sessions from each discipline, therapy sessions, and 1 each from each area of academics in a week. And the session duration was around 30 to 45 minutes. And during that session, the parents could freely interact with the therapist or the teacher and get their guidance. It was training, or it was a parent mediated intervention, we would say. So we were like molding the parents as co-therapists as to how to work with their child, what are the do's and don'ts while working in a goal or a particular activity, how to prepare the resources. Actually, the therapists and the teachers were discussing the parents. We were putting our brains together in developing resources. So that was also very awesome during that period. And to keep the group activities going, so we need children to meet other children also. That was also important because they were confined at home during that time. So to keep that going, we conducted morning assembly on a daily basis, where they would do yoga, exercises, sensory circuit, all that. We had an hour or so together in a group during the assembly. So that was also helping the children to meet others and interact with others. So but as any method will have its own challenges. Here also we had a lot of challenges, like we need to empower the parents. We had few grandparents who were taking care of the children. So we needed to really empower them regarding the technical side. So we needed to teach them how to use the gadgets, how to correct the connectivity issues. All these we needed to teach them, but then we could fairly overcome all this in the long run. So we found it very effective, and we had a long and wonderful journey in each discipline. And I think we'll be explaining that in detail from each area. So now I hand over to my dear colleague and occupational therapist, Rachna, to explain their journey.
Thank you, Anuja ma'am. So when we first began the system of online sessions, it was very daunting to us because we had to take therapy which was so in person and then figure out a way to deliver it via a screen. So initially it was a little rocky, but as the sessions went on, we figured out how we could work with each other as therapists and parents and children. So as the classes went on from September, there were a couple of challenges that we did face. So one was the lack of equipment. Only when we started online sessions, we realized how privileged we were to have a center with a toy library and where we could just go access anything that we wanted for therapy sessions. But when it was online, not all parents had resources at home just the way we had at school. So this was something that we found was quite challenging in the beginning. And a couple of others were how, even though we gave them pre-recorded video lessons and we were remotely guiding them, not all parents were able to give therapy to their child exactly how a trained therapist like us would deliver therapy to them. So that was one thing. And also one more important thing that we noticed was a lot of children were starting to become more dependent on their parents for basic ADL. So this happened because parents didn't find the time in their conflicting work schedules to, actually sit with their child and help them work through their ADL. They would just do it for them so that it's more convenient and they could just start their day like that. So that was one thing that we found. And parents are also not really confident in handling any concerns that came with sensory issues. So this was something that they always heavily depended on us as therapists. So they would, what would happen in a regular day was they would come to school and they would discuss their child's sensory needs with us, and we would give them home plans. But a lot of the intervention happened actually at school. So they weren't really confident that they could do this without school and without the therapist in person with them. And one more thing we figured was parents didn't really understand why, what was an importance behind the activity that we're giving, and how even something so small can go a long way and it had a greater functional purpose. Like, for example, we were making one of our children pass a popsicle stick horizontally through a piece of paper with both their hands. And the parent really couldn't understand, like, why are you guys doing this? What is the importance? But when we took that skill and tried to teach buttoning, that's when it really clicked. And then parents figured, okay, so this is why I'm doing this. And they slowly started to understand the rationale behind each activity. And then they started working along with us. So a couple of things that we learned along the way was how creatively we could use resources that were available at home. So one of the examples where none of the parents had tunnels at home, and we were thinking how could we do this? Like, how could we ask our children to crawl through a tunnel when there's no tunnel at home? So what we would do is take the dining table at home, cover two sides of it with a bedspread, and then encourage the child to crawl from one end to the other end. That was something that we creatively came up with. We also made a lot of DIY sensory toys at home. We filled socks with rice or balloons with rice, and we made squishy toys, food dye and water, along with glitter and water bottles for some visual toys. And then we also encouraged our parents to sort of create a sensory room at home, something that was very similar to the school setup, so that they could mimic the same environment by putting blackout curtains in their room, hanging fairy lights, and etc. So these were the things that we could creatively come up with along with the parents. And also parents were counseled on the importance of a child being independent in their basic ADL and how far that actually goes. So we did have a couple of grooming and dressing sessions. And what we figured out was the child was picking these up really quickly. And we found out that because when we did it at school, in a regular setting at school, it was always a session that we simulated. So it wasn't, it would happen at like probably in the middle of the day, brushing would happen at towards the end of the day. And the child never really understood why he had to brush at the end of the day, because we were just simulating sessions there. But when we started doing this at home, it really clicked for them. They knew they were in their own room. They had to get ready before coming to classes. So we would adjust the timing of our online sessions accordingly, so to help them do their basic ADL at home. And so what, as therapists and parents, we sat together, we made tailored sensory diets with all the resources available at each child's home. And then we started encouraging parents to implement it regularly every day. And once parents could see small changes in their behavior, in their child's behavior, they started feeling motivated and confident enough to pursue these strategies and continue to implement their sensory diets. And it was not just us who gave therapy activities. It was also the parents who came up with really fun things to do for their children over the weekend as the time went by. An example was one of our mothers of the child. She hung a balloon filled with water from the ceiling, and she played a game of piñata with her child. And her child enjoyed it thoroughly while working on his eye-hand coordination as well. So these were some of the things that we saw and felt happy as we did our online journey. And one thing that we did was adding sensory circuits, just like we did it at school. We did it at during the online sessions also. So what we would do is uh, stack a couple of chairs. Like there's a video that I would like to show you. So this was one of the activities that we did as part of sensory circuit. So here you're seeing a child taking a toy, climbing over a chair, and then going to the other end and dropping it. So this is something that really helped regulate and organize themselves before they started the rest of their classes. I'd also like to show you a couple more videos. So the next video is a child who didn't have a good tripod grasp. He wasn't able to trace. So all this was the beginning when we first started online classes, but with continual intervention, with spine motor activities that we did, this is where he is at now.
Slowly, you're going outside the line. Slowly. Slowly. Go up. Go up. Yes.
Good job, mother.
Slowly. Baki. Finish it. No. You have to finish this.
Rectangle.
Yes. One more.
Good job. One last one.
Rectangle.
Slowly.
Slowly.
Slowly. Straight line. Yes.
Good job, mother.
It's the ball.
Very good, mother.
Come on, please. I usually do together.
Good. You finished your circles. Very good. Okay. What's next? Very good, mother. Good job. You did that square really well. Very good, Page. Okay, Madhav, can you draw a circle? Circle. Very good. So as you can see, initially he needed a lot of help from his sister, but then a year later, he was able to trace all by himself. He was able to draw a circle and a square, something that he found really difficult to do earlier. So the next video is a session on visual perception. So this is a very simple worksheet of just matching colors. So initially you'd see this child wasn't able to scan. He wasn't able to look at both sides, wasn't able to hold his crayon or his pencil and match. So what we would do is ask him to point only on one side. Once he found what was required on the first side, we then block it and then try asking him to find the same thing on the other side. So there was a lot of things that went on just to complete a simple worksheet. But so eventually, as time went by, and
Nandu, can you point to the red color?
see where he is at now.
Red.
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Red.
On the other side, Nandu, can you point to red on the other side? Amma side la paru red color enga irukku Nandu? Look at the other side. Anga red enga irukku red. Oh, that's yellow. Red. Very good. Okay, Nandu. Now can we match it? Now can we use our, what do we have? We have a crayons there. Can we match? Can we match it?
Yes.
Can we join the dots from red to red? Come, Amma will help you, okay?
Yes. Good. Super, Nandu. Okay, the heart.
Only three more.
Only 3 more left.
Next is
Heart. Good. You brought it there. Good. Okay. Good. That's all. And the last one, last triangle. Last one, and that's it. Then you can get up and go. Come on, last triangle.
Front.
Can we try that one more time? Okay, okay, good, good. So as of now, he is able to complete a worksheet well within 2 to 3 minutes. He takes the pencil all by himself. He finds everything, matches it, and he's doing really well right now. I'd also like to show you a couple more videos, tidbits from each area activities that we did throughout the last 2 years. So yeah. So a little fun fact on this. This wasn't an activity that we gave. This was something that this child's mom came up with. She just brought in ingredients from her kitchen, wrote his name, and encouraged him to place everything on his name. This is the same child you saw in the previous video who needed his sister's help to hold a pencil and trace, but here you can see him coloring, and that too within the borders, which was something huge for him. This is an example of how we took a skill and put it for good functional use. So here we taught the child that he could use the scissors to open a package and then get what he wants, rather than just art and craft. Oranges are his favorite thing, and he takes an orange out of his package. So we also did a couple of gross motor activities. So here you're seeing a child do tandem walking to work on his balance. So here we just threw a couple of cushions on the floor and just to promote walking on unstable surfaces. This was a session where they did crawling, animal walks, and all those things. So along with the basic ADL, we did activities like buttoning. So here is a child able to button his own shirt while placing it on the table. And we also did a couple of instrumental activities of daily life. So here you can see our therapist. She's there on an online session, and she's helping a child match his own socks, fold it. So along with just dressing and grooming, we also did a lot of folding clothes and simple household chores. Here's another child learning to fold his own clothes. What was remarkable was this child struggles in the area of praxis. So for him to remember all of these steps and perform each action was a huge deal for him, and he did it really, really well. So the last bit is some sensory activities. And the first child that you're seeing is a child who hated wet or sticky textures, but here you'd see him enjoying putting his hands in shaving cream. So this was achieved through months of continual intervention. And the next child that you're going to see is someone who loves it. So he's getting a tactile activity as a reward. So these were a couple of things that we did during the online sessions in occupational therapy. And now I'd like to hand over to Ms. Anuja, who is the speech and language pathologist, and she'll talk you through how their journey was in the area of speech.
Thank you, Rachna. Now, communication intervention at school. I would explain how it was at CADRRE first, and then we'll go on. So at CADRRE, we had visual schedules. When children were there, we used to use toilet cards for indicating toileting. So we had a lot of communication strategies during school hours. But during that time, this is the pre-COVID time. So that time, the interaction between parents and children was very less. So there was very little communication that was happening between the parents and children. They had a very structured routine, getting up in the morning, coming to school, going back. A few of the kids would take a nap and then have their food, do some activity and go to bed. So this was happening. And communication was not a big problem. We didn't feel as it was a big issue because every daily routine is what was going on. It was all structured. So parents didn't feel a issue. So during that time, we used to counsel them, to tell them, try to train them regarding the augmentative alternative communication. We used to tell them a lot about what is the need for communication, what is the importance of communication in their lives, and how it could change the lives of the kids who were non-verbal or minimally verbal. But then the parents insisted on having speech. They want vocally their children to vocally speak their needs, and thus they should communicate. That is what parents insisted. And their fear was that the use of augmentative alternative communication would hinder the development of speech for their children, and also using a communication book or a gadget in the during an outing or in a gathering would be would not be culturally appropriate. So people will be staring at the child, people won't accept him. All these thoughts were there. And during when suddenly the pandemic struck and lockdown was imposed and all were confined at home, parents realized that they are not able to communicate with their child, not able to find out why their child is showing a certain behavior, what is their need, etc. So this is the time when they started coming back to us that some sort of a communication has to be established. So that is the time we were, by the time we had reached our video lessons. So this time we started sending videos about augmentative alternative communication, the myths and realities behind that. So how it would help them. So whether it will impact their speech development or not, all these was in detail explained to the parents through the videos. And once we started the online sessions, we slowly started with different strategies depending on the immediate need that the parents had. So initially we had to introduce picture exchange communication so as to establish a requesting strategies for a basic needs. That is what they needed. So the parents started sticking communication boards and pictures in their house, different places, so that children could easily access the picture and request for things that needed. So that may reduce their challenging behaviors related to lack of communication a lot. And then we slowly moved on to high-tech devices where we used the Avaz AAC app for communication. So there we needed parents to get a lot of training. So few of the parents who were not using technology for a long period needed to learn a lot regarding how to use it, how to edit different words or pictures in the app. So all that parents needed a lot of time to learn that. So slowly we could bring them to that. And we also use sign language because there are situations where we need to communicate without any gadget. Immediate and emergency communication has to happen, like toileting needs, etc. So there we also introduced sign language. So since few of the kids were picking up sign language, they were showing a lot of interest in sign language, we started introducing sign language generally. All in our greetings and other communications as well, we started introducing signs also. So we could see that it was an amazing progress that children showed, and they started picking up their AACs of their comfort. We gave them a lot of options. Few kids like to write or type to communicate. Few of them like pictures to communicate. Some preferred sign language to communicate. So they also had preference to communicate. We could move this to the like academics as well. There also they started expressing. So their academic skills also, we could find out that they were far above what we really thought they would be when they started expressing using the AACs. So that also was a remarkable progress that they showed, and we could generalize it. That is an important point that I would discuss. I had a wonderful team with me. We used to discuss with them the goals that were taken in communication. We would discuss with them how we were working on it, and how they could implement it in their sessions to communicate with the child. So they also insisted on using AACs during their sessions. So then the session was happening like from the therapist to the parent and then to the child. So slowly the session started happening from the therapist to the child. It was an interaction between the therapist and the child. That was a remarkable change that we noticed. And here I would like to share with you the journey of a single child. This is not a single journey. A lot of them showed this progress, but then due to time constraint, I would like to show a journey of a single child during the lockdown period, during our online sessions. During the initial sessions, we practiced PECs.
Good asking. Good asking.
Now, following instructions was also a big challenge at that time. So we use visual cues to help them follow instructions.
Here. Children, come. Drinking. Points. Good boy.
Language was also given due importance.
Drinking. This is drinking.
They are also taught the sign for drinking.
Good. How are you?
Thank you. Now you can see after the online session, he's greeting me, asking how are you today? He's responding. He's trying to make a sentence.
Eating what?
With Avas.
What is a rabbit? It's the rabbit.
Go back.
Back. Scroll down. Scroll down. Yes. Vegetables. Rabbit is eating carrots.
Oh. Okay. So when speech time is finished, what will you tell ma'am?
Bye.
So I'm using sign also there. So this was a wonderful journey in our communication intervention during the lockdown period. And now I would hand over to Vrinda, my colleague and psychologist, to explain about their journey during this period.
Thank you, Anja. We have heard about the effective changes brought about by occupational therapists and speech language pathologists. Now I'll take you through the interventions that the psychologists did. We focused on three main areas, that is executive functions, parent and family training, and independence in the children. Our focus was to let the children enjoy a sense of achievement in everything that they did. So this meant that we had to spend a lot of time working with parents to help them understand the need to reduce the prompts and give the children time to respond and the opportunity to make mistakes. And as we know, the myth of flawless learning was really challenged through the sessions, and we encourage the parents to let the children make mistakes and also give them the opportunity to correct themselves. And this work wonders for their self-confidence, and dramatically reduce their anxiety around trying activities. And also we mainly focused on making children to cope up with the new challenges and making them independent in all skill areas. And once the online method of teaching was introduced, many concerns were raised and parents were worried about the efficacy of the sessions and sitting tolerance of the children. And also they were unfamiliar that how to teach their children, as most of the children are nonverbal. And also they were not sure about the comprehension levels of their children as well. So to address these concerns raised by the parents, many one-on-one online sessions were conducted for them. And also we focused on managing maternal stress, increasing paternal support, and increase their inputs during the sessions, as the parents, especially mothers, were finding it difficult to manage these sessions along with household chores, their professional life. So we had to address their stresses and concerns regarding it. Now, as far as the children are concerned, they had behavior problems like escapism, self-harm, and aggression towards parents during the online sessions. And the main cause of such problems in that is the children had less tolerance in attending multiple activities during a session. So what we had done is prior to starting the session, children were made aware of the upcoming session by providing visual schedule orientation to make them aware on what all activities are to be done during the session. And they can also request for a break when needed, and also note on the reinforcements that are available. They were also given an option to choose the order in which the activities are to be done. And during the transition period, that's from offline to online, we introduced 2 social stories for the children. And the first one was to make them understand why they are at home and not at school. And second one was to make them aware on what to expect during an online session and how they have to attend it. Now I'll explain this with a case study. This is one of the social stories that I have already discussed about. And now in this footage, what we see here is a video of a 7-year-old boy during the starting of online session. And here we had given him a visual scanning and pointing activity. The child has to visually scan materials and respond by pointing the correct one. That is, when he is asked which is a food item, he had to scan the objects given and has to point the food item listed. And the skills focus here are joint attention skills, sitting tolerance, visual and auditory attention, and also listening and following instructions. During the transition period, he had difficulty in accepting and adjusting with the new methods. That, as you can see in the footage, the child is having poor sitting tolerance and high resistance. And it's clear in this video that the mother had to drag him back to the seat, and she needed to give multiple prompts to bring him back to seat and get him to even do a little bit of task. And this is how he was attending the sessions at the start of online classes. So to resolve this, we had to provide a social story for this child to make him adapt to the new circumstances. And as this boy was very much attached to his father, we customized the social story with his father's voiceover. And we knew that he will be more attentive to the story and will follow the instructions if it is in his father's voice. And here I'll show a small selected clip of that.
Hi, I am Mahi. When I finish my work, I can take a short break and move around the room, and I can also listen to rhymes. I enjoy all my activities. Hooray!
So after repeated use of this video, he understood that these are the sessions by his teacher. He has to attend the sessions by sitting at his table and has to follow the instructions given. And there's a remarkable improvement. Was noticed in the sitting tolerance of the child. And as you can see in the video, that the child goes from not want to attend the activity to working fairly independently. And this is an example on how we worked on the challenges of each child in an individualized way. Now, then after like 8 to 10 months of consistent and continuous intervention, noticeable improvements were gained by the same child, and these improvements were seen maintained by the child even after coming back to school. And now let's see how the changes maintained by the child. As you can see, he is doing an auditory comprehension and sequencing activity. And here he is recreating the story, Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, using visual cards. Here he is arranging the cards in order and is narrating the story using the cards.
Blouse. White shoes. Red. Strawberry. Red. Orange. Blue. Mud. Green.
See, a very little prompt is here you can see that as visual scanning has improved and there is an increase in verbal response and level of independence. A very little prompt is given from our side just to guide him through. And here we can clearly notice the positive effects on this interventions. And also like this, we have seen a remarkable positive improvements in other children by the end of the online sessions. The improvements they gained are also seen well maintained during the offline sessions as well. And also as a result of this, parents gained a much better understanding of their children, and there was a great reduction in number of challenging behaviors. As the challenging behaviors reduced, there were remarkable improvements in executive functions and sitting tolerance of the children. And these improvements reflected in their academics, typing skills, and also made their learning much easier. And these are all the points on psychological intervention that we have implemented to bring changes on children, parents and caregivers. Now over to Nandita, my dear colleague and psychologist, for further discussion of implementation of interventions moving forward.
So just to sum up, I think, from all the footage that you've seen and heard all of us talk, we did have a lot of challenges, but it also gave us an opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect on what was going on when we were actually, delivering services in person. And I think you would appreciate the fact that service delivery, though we know what is the best way and what are the gold standards, when it comes to implementation, there are a lot of gaps. We have very long waiting lists, and that, with the early intervention, that is a very huge challenge that we all face. Even though we have integrated multidisciplinary teams, do we actually reflect the values and cultures that is needed for that? Do we actually focus on parent input and training as much as we need to? And are we aware of the inordinate pressure that the families go through, especially the mothers? So while we came away with these understandings and learnings, I think what we also realized was to have a truly integrative multidisciplinary team, we have to be extremely flexible. We have to be willing to learn constantly. And communication between each of the team members was key for us, because for a 45-minute session, we had to plan, we had to speak to each other, we had to be willing to accept feedback, and we had to be able to give a lot of time to understand each person's perspective. Parents to us came across as the biggest, collaborators that we needed to train, to educate, because from the moment the child is diagnosed with autism, and then through all the other phases that they go through, that caregiver is the constant figure. We will come in different zones and different times, and then we move on in their lives. So that one person needs to have a lot of education and needs to know how to take this child forward. As we move back into our, post-pandemic lives, and from the pandemic where we're moving into an endemic, I think the need for stronger communities where families are truly supported, where parents can take a break and their children can be safe and they can be gainfully engaged, seems to be a huge need that we need to address. And I think our hope is that as we move back into, conventional ways of delivering therapies, that the online effectiveness will not be lost. I think we can really use it as a parallel, and provide services for people who are on the waiting list, who cannot access service because of their geographic location, or because they have children with multiple challenges, or just cannot manage the travel time and coming and going because they have a very packed schedule. So if they can take it from the comfort of their home, why not? So while this evolved as a response to the pandemic, I think we should look at it as a very beneficial add-on to our existing ways of therapy. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, please do let us know. We can definitely try and answer them for you.
Danny, I don't think we could hear you. We couldn't hear you. No.
I'm taking off my headphones. Is that better? Yes. Okay. Well, I wasn't speaking very well anyways, and so maybe it's better. But I just wanted to I wanted to say thank you, to our colleagues, who came on. I was struck by so many things. I was struck by the ways that the challenges that that we faced, I think spoke universally. Some of those things really spoke universally, but at the same time, the ways that you responded to them were, yeah, I think were very, very instructive to us. Like Nandita, I love that last slide, of kind of the way forward. And I just think even in my own practice, but also in my own life as well, what a benefit that is, or what a joy that is as well. I do want to respect people's time. I think we're just on the end of our time. What I'll do is I'll invite you, I'll certainly keep this room open as long as people would like. I'll invite you to put any questions you have in your chat. I'll compile those and I'll send them to our speakers. I was wondering if there maybe is, I think we can make time for one question, maybe, if somebody did want to, if there was something that came up that you really wanted to ask. If you want to raise your hand, I'm happy to call on you for one question. And I hope our speakers can see the chat. I think there's some really wonderful compliments coming in for you.
Danny, did you want me to take the question by Cindy?
Cindy, yes, why don't Cindy, yes, so Cindy in the chat asks, I'm impressed with the collaboration that you have shown through the various videos. I'm curious about how much time is needed for each session.
Cindy, I think it would kind of like vary. On average, I think it took us, so what we did was, while we had the IEPs for each child, we also then clubbed them by ability level. And so for a group of children who were at the similar ability level, each session was 45 minutes. That was the direct time that we gave, the one-on-one time that we gave the child. But it would also take us about the same amount of time to prepare. And because we had to collaborate, on a weekly basis, we would all talk to each other and also, give feedback and plan and know what the other person's goal was, and then try and understand how to kind of reinforce it. So 45 minutes would be like the basic amount we would give per session in planning.
Thank you. Okay, so I will go ahead and I will end the meeting here. I'm sorry, was Kashfi, was that you?
Yes. I didn't have any question, but I would like to congratulate CADRRE on this amazing presentation. I am from India, you would have known from my name, but I really look up to the excellent efforts like you've taken, like the entire team, in providing like even individualized support. And I remember like I was a fresh graduate when I started taking online session for a teletherapy session for a client with autism. And I understand how challenging this would have been, because I almost gave up. And I'm just overwhelmed like how so much of cultural aspects you brought in, and I'm just so glad. Thank you.
Kashfi, later on, if you want, I can make a personal connection, with CADRRE. I'm happy to do that, so we can chat about that. thank you all very much, to our friends from CADRRE. I really look forward to more collaborations with all of you. This is a budding relationship we really treasure. So once again, let's please show appreciation to our guests this evening. So thank you very much, and yeah, and thanks to all of you as well. I know it's a late night for us here. Thank you for coming. I want to just close by leaving us all with hopes for peace in the world right now, and certainly concern for those that are in harm's way right now. So thank you all very much. I'll go ahead and I'll stop the recording here.